Few things are likely to spark more debate in the world of cinema than a list of the 10 greatest movies ever made. No two lists are likely to be the same, which speaks to the subjective nature of art, and what is loved or hated varies from person to person. What follows is my list, ranked from 10 to 1, of the best films of all time, with a brief explanation for why I believe each belongs where it does. I'd love to hear from all of you, and whether you agree or disagree, and why. The best film of this century is also a candidate for the title of the Great American Film. Daniel Day-Lewis won the second of his 3 Best Actor Oscars for his performance as oilman Daniel Plainview, a man obsessed with wealth and power, but also with the idea that he cannot win if anyone else is allowed to succeed. It is a searing critique of how the American dream has become a pursuit of money and influence, and Anderson focuses on the 2 most influential institutions in American life, business and religion, with Anderson arguing that each has become a soulless enterprise that corrupts absolutely. Money cannot buy happiness, and watching Plainview destroy himself and lose everything that should be dear to him, capped by his closing words, "I'm finished," is devastating. The Japanese master's final epic is a take on William Shakespeare's King Lear, and it is a visual feast that miraculously captures the spirit and message of Shakespeare's darkest and most enigmatic play without the poet's peerless language. Kurosawa transfers the story to feudal Japan, where an aging lord believes he can bequeath his kingdom to his 3 sons, yet remain in power, with nobody questioning the reasons or his naive desire. One of the most beautiful movies ever filmed, Kurosawa somehow captures the crushing tragedy of its source material while improving upon Shakespeare's work in terms of motivation and characterization, a seemingly impossible task. It is the best Shakespeare adaptation, minus the Shakespeare. Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness is transferred from colonial Africa to the Vietnam War, and Coppola succeeds where even Orson Welles failed, bringing Conrad's theme of humankind's dark heart and inherent nature to the war that shattered American idealism. Welles tried and gave up on making Conrad's novella his first film before turning to Citizen Kane, but Coppola perfectly captures the hypnotic allure of power extending to godlike limits, even as the mission of Martin Sheen's assassin on the trail of Marlon Brando's crazed Colonel Kurtz becomes a surreal journey into a kind of hell on earth. The encounter of Sheen and his men with Robert Duvall's Colonel Kilgore, who wipes out a village while blaring Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries from speakers attached to helicopters, simply to clear the way for surfing, and Sheen's dreamlike meeting with Brando are 2 of the greatest sequences in cinema's past half-century. The supreme achievement of classic Hollywood, Humphrey Bogart's misanthropic nightclub owner must convince himself to do the right and selfless thing with the woman who broke his heart while World War II rages around them. Of all the gin joints in all the world, Ingrid Bergman walks back into his, only for Bogey to find out that the husband Bergman believed lost is alive and well and a leading figure in the resistance against the Nazis. To serve the greater good, Bogey must intentionally lose her all over again. Chalk one up for the good guys, as Bogey finds redemption and a beautiful friendship in the most quotable movie ever made. Here's looking at you, kid. The ultimate existential film, Scorsese's masterpiece is a harrowing vision of a loner's descent into madness and a dark preview of America's future, with violence the tool used by lost men to leave their stamp on a world in which they see no meaning for themselves. Robert De Niro gives arguably his greatest performance as Travis Bickle, the eponymous cab driver who perceives that it is his duty to wash New York City of its filth and sins, an act that he envisions will transform him into a hero. As Travis becomes increasingly detached from reality, we want to avert our gaze but can't, all too aware that he is the sign of things to come. Wondering how he would follow up the success of La Dolce Vita, Fellini took the idea of creative block to make a movie about creative block, and his greatest artistic success was born. It's a surreal and semi-autobiographical fantasy with Marcello Mastroianni as Fellini's doppelganger. Fellini has the boldness of vision to meditate upon art, religion, sex, love, success, failure, and life and death. The showstopper is a fantasy sequence, with Mastroianni recalling the women in his life as a harem, and one woman protesting relegation to the upper floor because she has grown too old to remain at the center of his consciousness. Un capolavoro. Elderly Japanese parents visit their adult children in Tokyo, only to find them rude, disconnected, and unconcerned. The parents are anchored in a world that has largely disappeared because of time and World War II, while the children have adopted new values and become westernized. Their living children seem to have no time or interest in them, and the only person who shows them much concern is their daughter-in-law, the widow to a son who died in the Pacific War and who struggles with her own guilt in the wake of her husband's death. It is only after the mother becomes suddenly ill and dies that the children seem to notice. Because the relationships at the core span all cultures and time, it's devastating. In perhaps cinema's greatest miracle, Coppola reluctantly agreed to make a sequel to the biggest moneymaker of all time, which also won the Best Picture Oscar for 1972. And somehow, he crafted a superior film that became the only sequel to match its predecessor's Best Picture Oscar win. The follow-up is better because it is deeper, richer, and more complex. It's like a glorious novel come to life. Both are prequel and sequel, as Coppola tells the story of Corleone patriarch Vito before the events of the original film, in parallel with son Michael's life after the original ends, with him as ruthless head of the family. The father is lured to the dark side of the American dream, dooming his son to lose the family in the name of saving it. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? The ultimate in visual storytelling, Kubrick's magnum opus, decades ahead of its time, explores humankind's potential and its failings. Can we eventually shed our instinct for violence, or is it an essential aspect of our nature? Only Kubrick can link a species of proto-human a million years in our past to our present, and that present to a theoretical future, when a new version of ourselves might lead us to a more perfect age of enlightenment. With special effects that hold up to anything produced by computers today, and an AI entity in the HAL 9000 computer that speaks to one of the foremost issues and debates of our time, the film is as relevant as ever. After conquering the worlds of theater and radio by the age of 25, Wells turned his attention to cinema, and in his first effort, crafted the greatest film ever made before he turned 26. There is no greater definition of genius. Wells directed, produced, co-wrote, and took the starring role in a story that is the leading candidate for the great American film. Charles Foster Kane has everything that should make a man happy: money, power, and influence. There is nothing he doesn't have except contentment. In a groundbreaking narrative that defies conventional storytelling, filmed in a style never really seen in American cinema to that point, Kane's life is revealed as a series of memories out of chronological order. He's an enigma, a puzzle with a missing piece. Except that the missing piece has been there all along and explains everything. Rosebud, the sled of his lost youth.